My name is Sally Potter. I am the OER faculty coordinator, also the distance education coordinator, and then I'm also serving as department chair of EMLS linguistics. And I am joined by Linda Kobashigawa, who is my OER partner. She is now the co-chair of the library. She also serves as our rep to the ASCCC OERI for Fresno City College. And in addition, she is the chair of the OER committee. Okay, let's see here. This is what we have planned today. So really quickly, I am going to talk about what OER is, a little bit about how to use it, but we want to spend the majority of our time on places where you can find OER. So Linda's going to take you to a number of websites. While I'm speaking, Linda will be looking at the chat and the Q&A, and then we'll switch. So because we have, oh, actually not, it's not too large. Um, Generally when there are a large number of people and they're putting a lot of comments in the chat, sometimes it's difficult for us to find your questions. So if you have a question, maybe it seems like we missed it or didn't see it, or it's just something that you really want us to answer, type it in the Q&A. And so how, at least on my version on my computer, the way that I can see the Q&A is on Zoom, there's a little more with 3-dot button. If you click that, then it should you should be able to see Q&A, and then that opens another box. But either one, we can probably manage the chat with this many people. Also, I want to say for people who are joining from their iPhone, or anyone whose name does not appear, please go to the participants pane and right click your name or your little person or whatever you call that, and then change your name so to your first and last name. That way you'll get credit for attending. Okay. And then, like I said, we want to spend a majority of the time showing you places where you can find OER today. So what we'll ask you to do is, if you do have a question that you want to ask us out loud, that's fine. We should have time at the end to open it up for questions. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Talking about open educational resources. What is that? Okay, so here's a definition. They're teaching, learning, and research resources that reside in public domain or are released under an intellectual property license that permits their free use and repurposing by others. So this is really talking about the license of the material, of the resource. When we're talking about the license, there's something called Creative Commons license. This is a set of open licenses. And these aren't the only open licenses, but these are the main ones that you will see when you're searching for course materials. The idea is that, in the United States, when an author or an artist creates something, it is automatically copyrighted. That means that they reserve rights. And no one can legally use, edit, repurpose those. Creative Commons licenses allow authors, creators to allow other people to legally use and share their work. So that's what the Creative Commons licenses are all about. And you're going to see the little CC, that's the icon. This is the sort of chart of all of the Creative Commons licenses. The top one is something that's in public domain. That's a little bit different. That means it's completely open. But everything that has a little CC on it, that means that it's been shared by someone who wants others to use this material, okay? And then these other little icons tell you exactly what you can do with it. Now, we could definitely spend 75 minutes alone just on talking about the ins and outs of these licenses. And Linda and I have done workshops on that. The ASCCC OERI has, you know, archived workshops that you can watch if you're interested in digging into this. But what I think is important to understand here is that when you see the little the little person, that means that if you're using that material, you can do anything with it that you want. You just have to say the author's name or the organization's name. If it has the essay share alike, that means that you can use it. You can use it and give it to your students, do anything that you want with it, but you just can't change the license. The NC means non-commercial, and that means that it can't be sold. Now, this is sometimes a problem with when we're dealing with a commercial bookstore, because they legally can charge for ink and paper, but they're not supposed to charge anything over that. And so sometimes that gets into a little tricky situation. You know, if you're confused about that, just reach out to us, reach out to the bookstore, and they can, you know, let you know if it's something that can be sold in the bookstore. And then the combination. When you see the ND, that means no derivatives. And what that means is that these materials that have ND cannot be edited, but the others can, okay? So, you know, again, this is a little bit complex. If you have any questions, if you run across a material, or if you're creating something and you're not sure which license to use, just reach out to me. Linda is also an expert in, more than I am actually, in the Creative Commons licenses, so we can help you work through this. Okay. We also have this other acronym, ZTC, that you may have heard of. This stands for Zero Textbook Cost. So a lot of times you'll see a ZTC course, ZTC degree, and that's not necessarily talking about the license. What it's talking about is the cost to students. So in general, if you're giving students an openly licensed material and you're giving it to them digitally, you know, sending it to them on Canvas, for example, then there's probably not going to be a cost associated with that. However, if you have a ZTC course or ZTC materials, then there is not supposed to be any kind of cost associated with that, but there may be some restrictions on how you can use it, how you can edit it, how you can distribute it. So you just have to be a little bit careful about that. And then for fair use, I would say if you are trying to use any kind of a commercial textbook, commercial work, and you are trying to use it under fair use, it is very difficult. And you probably want to think about staying away from that. So the idea behind fair use is that in general, this is a summary, that if it is, if you're giving it to students in some form, and you are preventing them or not, or making it so that they do not have to purchase that material, then that is not allowed. But if, for example, you have a commercial textbook, you know, maybe the bookstore ran out of copies, maybe you know your students don't get their financial aid checks for a couple of weeks, you need to start working on chapter 1, you can legally scan copies of that first chapter. You can legally give them paper copies of that first chapter, because the expectation is that they will be buying it, okay? So again, it's a little bit complicated, but any questions, just reach out to us. Okay, zero textbook cost. You will see when you look in self-service that we have little icons next to courses that are essentially free for students. And and that's what ZTC means. It's not referring to the license, it's referring to the cost of students, because that's what students care about, is the cost. Different ZTC materials that are not included or not considered OER would be, most things that you're going to get from the library, websites that you visit that are online, and anything that you write yourself. Okay. Okay. So why we're doing this, why we care about this, why we're not just going, a lot of you that are here, I know you're already converted, but really quickly I want to just talk about this so that you can essentially talk to your colleagues about this. Lots and lots of studies have been done on this, looking into textbook affordability. This is a real famous one from 2018, so it's a little bit older. But you can look at the percentages here, and basically what this is saying is that this is a nationwide study. They looked at community colleges and four-year universities, students all across the board, and they asked them these questions, and they found that 64.25% of the students surveyed at some point in their college career did not purchase a textbook because it was too expensive. So they had a class, they were supposed to purchase the textbook, and they just didn't because it cost too much. 42.76% of them said that they took fewer courses because of the cost of textbooks. About 40% said that they are not registering for certain courses because of the cost of textbooks. And then 35% earned a lower grade because they never bought the textbook for the course. Maybe that grade was an F, maybe they would have earned an A and they earned a B or a C, something like that. And then almost 23% dropped a course just because of the cost of textbooks. So when we look at, from the point of view of students, affordability matters. We wanted to share this information with you. This is data from Fresno City College. We have made a lot of gains in offering our ZTC, and LTC means low textbook cost, that's $40 or lower, courses over the years. And so we have been keeping track of the number, and you can see that it is growing and growing each year. And we're just, really proud of our faculty for believing in this, supplying this for students. It's really, really important, and we hope to each year make similar gains. Okay. Here are some more statistics from Fresno City College. On the program review data dashboards, we now have a filter where you can look at your success rates for ZTC courses and LTC courses versus traditional courses. So when we look at, how all students are doing in their traditional courses versus ZTC courses, where the blue is traditional and the orange is ZTC, we can see that they do a little bit better. But when you start digging into some of these more impacted groups, for example, the African American males and the Hispanic males especially, they make really large gains in those areas. So if we are looking, at how to improve our success rates for all of our students, and especially these impacted groups, then this is, one thing that we can do for our students. And then this is just some a chart with some disaggregated success rates. I listed all of the different groups, everything broken down, and you can see that, for some of them it's very close, but for all of them there is at least even or a little bit of a gain in the ZTC courses. Now, why does this phenomenon occur? And it's not just for Fresno City College. This is for this is across the board. We see these same type of statistics. The reason is because, again, thinking about that first chart, that first survey, Students, if they can't afford the book, they maybe will try to stay in the course, take the course, and then they don't end up getting as good of a grade because they didn't get all the material. Or they make it about halfway or 3/4 of the way through the course, and then they realize that they're going to fail, and so they either drop or take the W or the F out of that course. And this really does affect our more impacted groups, disproportionately impacted groups more. They just don't have the same resources. They may be first generation students. They may not know anyone that they can borrow a book from. They may not know how to, search for textbooks or materials online. And they may not feel like they can talk to their instructor about how they're struggling financially. So, we want to keep all of that in mind. Okay, so as we get into the kind of how to, working with OER, I want to take a little bit of a step back and talk about backwards mapping of SLOs and objectives. And if you have taken the distance education certification course, this is probably familiar to you. If you've taken basic courses on pedagogy, you're probably familiar with this. But when I was first starting to teach my first college courses back, now it's been 25 years, I didn't know about this, and I had recently graduated. They needed someone to teach linguistics here at Fresno City. That was my very first course. The department chair handed me the textbook, and I just started with chapter 1. We went through chapter 1, finished that, went through chapter 2, went through chapter 3, and so on until I ran out of weeks in the course. And then that's just how far we got. And then we took our final. But now that we have SLOs in our life and we are thinking about teaching to that course outline of record, there's a much more effective way to do that. So what you want to do is, start with your COR, start with your course outline of record, looking at especially the objectives of the course. What do you want your students to learn? Okay, so that's kind of step one. What is the information that you want them to learn? Then you plan your assessments. How will you test those students in those concepts? Then you want to try to find material that you're going to cover that helps the students succeed in those assessments. If you're teaching from a commercial textbook, this can sometimes be a challenge because not everything that's in that textbook is something that you need to cover according to your COR. And there may be concepts, information that you need to cover on your COR that's not included in that textbook. So now you have to search elsewhere. You have to come up with it on your own or find an outside article to give your students. Using OER makes this very easy to do, because remember, for the vast majority of these materials, you can edit them, you can move them around, you can pick and choose, you can actually teach from 2, 3, 4 different textbooks if you can find them on your course, and take this chapter here, this section here, and kind of mix and match and edit them together. Now, this is, of course, more work. Does take some work to do this. Sometimes you find a book that perfectly aligns with how you like to teach, but more often than not, you do need to do some editing. And however, the end result, and I don't think anyone would expect anyone to do this in just 1 semester or 2 semesters. This does take several semesters, several years, to get your course really dialed in. The result is that you have a course that is, covers exactly what you needed to cover, no more, no less, and covers it the way that you want to cover it, the way that you want to deliver it to your students. Okay. Okay, so when we're giving attribution to these materials that you find, and hopefully you will walk away with at least one, if not more, materials that you can use in your course today. The acronym that we want to remember is TASL. So this is the information that you need to supply to students. So the name of the material, the author, the source, meaning like the link, providing the link, and then the license. Most of the time when you're looking at OER materials, you will see all of this information down at the bottom of usually each page. You can just copy and paste it. It will come over even with the hyperlinks. So there's not too much that you have to do. However, occasionally you will find something that doesn't have, something like this, or you need to alter it slightly. And in that case, there's something called an open attribution builder. And I'm gonna put that into the chat right here, just in case you want to check that out. This is not the only one, but I really like this one. So this is, similar to like an easy bib type of tool. You just put the information in, you choose the license, and then you just kind of hit enter, and it creates the license perfectly for you. So this license, hang on, this little blurb down here at the bottom, I created this using this open attribution builder. This is the citation for this open attribution builder. Okay. Okay, finding OER, where to look for high quality OER, and I'm going to turn it over to Linda now. And then as Linda is showing you these different sites, I am going to be popping in the chat the links to each of them, so you can follow along with her.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sally. Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I'm going to be running through a list of different places where kind of Sally and my go-tos for finding OER, some that you might be familiar with if you've looked before, others that you may not have heard of before. But feel free to, when Sally posts the link, jump into that resource and look for some of the material that's in there. What's really nice about a lot of these is that there's constantly new OER being added to them, new materials. So if you looked a couple years ago, maybe didn't find anything, there's again always new material being added. So there might be something that you can find this time, even if you've looked in some of these places before. And please let me know if you cannot see my screen or where I'm going. I hope this.
Yeah,
I hope this
see it.
we're good. Okay, so I should be on the ASCCC OER initiative slide right now. This is pretty much our primary go-to. As Sally mentioned earlier, I am the ASCCC OERI liaison for Fresno City College, and this is a system-wide initiative that began in 2018. It offers faculty in our system professional development, technical support. They also fund or help fund RFPs and different projects related to developing OER and encourage collaboration. This is the website that you can get to. They have a really good list of curated OER. Much of that OER, if it's not created by faculty in our system, it has been vetted by the OERI. So I'm going to show you a couple places to go. Again, there's lots of great resources here, but what you're primarily going to want to look at is those curated OER collections. So you'll just go to resources, that drop-down menu, it's the first option there. Everything is organized either by subject or CID or by discipline, so you can select any of these to browse some of those materials in there. So there's various discipline collections that you can scroll through. All of these are listed in alphabetical order just to kind of see what's available for you. They also do match those CIDs. So if I go into Econ, I can see what's available for the CID Econ 201, 202, and some of those resources as well. So this is, again, our go-to, usually where we send instructors for the most part. Another really great resource that the OERI provides are their webinars and events. I will send these out usually to department chairs. If I see something that's relevant to your discipline, I'll try to send that to your department chair or your representative on the OER committee for them to send out to faculty in their area. So try to do that every month when they do announce new webinars and events. You can also see recorded ones that are in their webinars. If you just want to see what's available, maybe you are curious about what's been done related to Spanish OER resources, just do a keyword search under their archived and you can watch all of these free of charge. These are open to all faculty and they cover different subjects, different types of materials. And developing different types of things. Okay, the last thing I want to show you real quick on this site is images. So I think you can find it a couple different places. I think it's under OER developers, and they have quite a few image sources. I know, we've got AI now that can generate pretty much anything we want to see. But if you want something that is truly openly licensed, openly available, you don't really have to worry if it's been stealing from actual artists to create those images. You can look at some of the public domain image sources, and again, these have all been vetted from the OERI and provide Creative Commons licensed images that you can embed into your materials. All right. Sally, if you need to add anything, feel free to interrupt me.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, an addition to the OERI is that they are on Canvas Commons. I don't have a link here, so I'm not going to go there. But if you just go into your Canvas shell, go to Canvas Commons, which is in the global navigation menu, and just search for ASCCC OERI. You will find quite a bit of courses, full course shells that have been created based on some of these resources. I pulled this one up because I used this for my library skills class, this Introduction to College Research that was written by some librarians in our system. I used that, and they have a Canvas course shell that I can just pull and plug into my course, and I don't have to link to anything. All the text and everything is already in there, so that makes it a little easier. Most of the materials that the OERI has created or provides access to, if they do have Canvas resources, should be in that Canvas Commons. So I suggest just searching ASCCC OERI and you will find some of that. Alrighty.
Could
Yeah.
you really quickly, I think John is asking about the on the ASCCC website or on Canvas Commons, just uh is that right, John? Like while we're here. Yeah. So maybe for Canvas Commons, I put the link there. If that's what you're looking for, just go to that link. It should take you, if
Let
you're
me
logged in, it should
see.
take you to Canvas. And then,
So,
Yeah, I'm
can I
sorry, I'm
just chime
moving
in real
super
quick?
fast.
yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So I'm at the website now, and I was looking at the website and hearing the overview, and I saw some things in common. I know I'm gonna have to spend some time there myself, but I saw some things in common, and I was like, "Huh? What do I do? What was that again?" And maybe I'm just maybe I'm the only one that is things going a little bit
No,
fast. But
yeah, no, we're
if
going
I'm
fast.
not,
Yeah.
then just maybe that first click, and then where to do the search, and then I think I'll be in good shape. Please.
And you are talking about this website, the OERI?
Think I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. The
Okay.
whatever the link was.
So a couple of
Yeah.
links. So to get
Okay.
to
That's
the
where I'm at right now.
okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay. So to get to the actual OER, the textbooks, the courses, the materials, resources, that top right corner, and then curated OER collections. And then you'll see a list of, here's the searchable OER by CID. Sometimes I just go to the discipline, and then it'll list out those disciplines in alphabetical order. And then you click on your discipline, John is in English and literature, so I'm going to click on that. And oh, it also lists, oh, this is cool. So again, everything changes.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect. Yeah, so it'll link to some of those English specific webinars, so you really don't even have to search. They're all there available. Um, and then also you will see the OER that is broken out by the specific focus. Yeah.
wow. Do that one more time. Please. I mean, not the whole thing, just the last two steps.
Okay, okay. So the archive webinars, this might look different too, depending on your discipline. Some disciplines have more materials than others, but the archive webinars, so if you just want to learn more about OER in English and literature courses, you can look at some of those. I'm going to close that. And then we can also scroll down. These are some by specific topic. So if you want to look at readings and anthologies that are available, these will link to some of those. Um,
Perfect. Thank you very, very much.
you're welcome. Yeah, and don't forget to scroll down farther because you'll see all of the different
Oh yeah.
courses and everything that's available. So yeah, lots for English. So yeah. Okay, anything else? Sally, do you see anything else in the chat?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. And I made it into Canvas Commons. So I'm going to do a search real quick while I'm in there. So again, Canvas Commons just right down here, just again in your navigation menu. I'm just searching ASCCC, OERI, just to see specifically what materials they have. And what I always look for too, you could pretty much guarantee that these are OER resources, but if you want to see the specific license, you can just click into the course and it will always show you up at the top. So this one happens to be CC BY, so I can pretty much do anything I want to this course if I want to use it as is, or if I want to change quite a bit of it to be more contextual, I can do that and just provide that attribution that Sally showed earlier, the tassel. Okay, let me figure out if I can get back to my slideshow. Yes, okay. Okay, so these are complete textbook repositories. Basically, you will find full completed OER textbooks. In here, the first one I'm going to show is Open Textbook Library. This is a pretty good sized one. A lot of these will have materials in various subject areas, so you might need to do a little searching, but it might also let you browse by subject area. So this is technically what we call a referatory. That's some language that you don't necessarily need to remember, but basically it's pulling from different materials. So there may be some repetition or redundancy in the materials that you find in here. I think OpenStax and other things are available in here. I'm going to keep talking until it loads, but if it doesn't, you can use Sally's links and look for yourself. So it's supported by the Open Education Network. It contains around 1,600 open textbooks. So as I mentioned, I think the slide said 1,000, and we created, I didn't update that slide. So it was created a few years ago, but again, they're consistently adding material. So now they're up to 1,600 open textbooks that they link to. These are published by different universities and colleges across the United States. The majority of the books have been peer reviewed by faculty at these member institutions of the Open Education Network, and they do come with overall ratings. You can review those reviews as well. Just a rundown of the different subjects. You can scroll through and look through them yourself to more specific ones here. But there's a lot in business, computer science, engineering, biology, math, law, many social sciences, all of those things. And I would just recommend finding your subject area and browsing some of those materials. Let me click in that. It'll list out. You can also employ some of those filters too, just to get more specific with what kinds of materials you want to use. Okay, OpenStax. So I mentioned OpenStax. Um, maybe a couple times already. Many of you may already be familiar with OpenStax. It's used by quite a few faculty, I think, on our campus. And these materials, they can be printed and bound and look like real textbooks if you need a print copy. And I think that's what some instructors really like about them. OpenStax comes with lots of the ancillaries, assessments, lecture slides, like test banks. It also provides you the Word doc files so you can edit the textbook easily if there's something in there that you want to change. The number of titles in OpenStax is more limited, but they're really good resources. I know I saw someone from counseling in here, I think, and so their college success materials, I think, are pretty popular. Some instructors use that in their courses just to support students, even if they're not teaching counseling courses. There's about 40 titles in here, and so again, these are fully available for you. I'm going to click on one of them. Um, this first one here. So here are the book details. You can read it directly online, pull different chapters. If you go to instructor resources, that's where you can download the Canvas cartridge if you need to, get some of the PowerPoint slides, those test banks as well. So again, it comes with pre-made ancillaries that are really helpful. You can also, I think, find these in Canvas as well. Just search OpenStax and then the book that you're looking for. I did mention something on this slide that I want to make sure I remember. So they also come with LTIs from partners. There's a homeworking system. Again, sorry, I know I'm moving really fast and I'm jumping from screen to screen, but you may have seen on this previous screen, it's got this available in assignable. Um, uh, option. That is a pretty much a homeworking system that OpenStax has been rolling out for the last year or two. It is free for us to embed into our Canvas courses. However, I think students have to pay $15 to support that. So just be aware of that's what assignable is. But if that's something you all are interested in for your topics, there's quite a few that do have assignable embedded. I remember when they first came out with it, it was 2 books, and now it's many more, and they're continuing to develop that. So again, that is something that students would have to pay a small fee for that option. But I think OpenStax material has been around long enough that there's quite a bit of OER that has been developed for those books. Okay, so this is just a preview of OpenStax in Canvas Commons as well. So again, just search that OpenStax and you can also put in the title of the book or the subject, and those will pop right up in Canvas Commons. Okay, SUNY textbooks. So this is, again, a smaller repository. It covers a large range of subjects, but maybe only about 1 to 4 titles for each of those subjects. So this is somewhat exclusive material because the textbooks that are included in here are authored and peer reviewed by SUNY faculty and staff. So you may find something in here that you didn't find somewhere else. So it's worth a look. Let's go browse it. Maybe not. Okay. My computer doesn't like me today. But if it works for you, please go there. Okay. Um, Alrighty, I'm going to jump to BC Open Collection. So this is formerly known as BC Campus Open Ed. They sort of rebranded a little bit, but it's supported, this collection and these materials are supported by BC Campus. It's a Canadian government agency that supports colleges and universities in Canada, of course. So the textbooks in here, some of the requirements are some that we would see with other OER. Of course, they have to be openly licensed. They have to have that Creative Commons license. Something else to know about the BC collection is that they have to have Canadian relevance. So there's going to be a Canadian focus in the material. So just something to be aware of. But anything in BC Open Collection is reviewed for accessibility based on their strict accessibility criteria. So that helps in knowing that the materials you're getting are already kind of checked for accessibility and web reading and all of those things. The subjects that are most covered in here, it's a pretty big collection, actually. Let me open this up. Oh, I linked to the old one. All right, here we go. Um, you can kind of see all of the different subjects that are available. The big ones are biology, physiology, business, maths and statistics, engineering, and the social sciences. So those are the larger collections. You can see they're still kind of building some of the other ones. Okay. Okay,
Um,
go ahead.
oh yeah, and then I just wanted to interrupt, and the that SUNY open link is not correct.
Oh
Um,
no. Okay.
yeah, so I did find the a link that at least works for me. So yeah, so apologies for that.
Oh, great. Okay. Thanks, Sally. There it is. Okay. I'm gonna keep going. So, MIT OpenCourseWare. So this is really cool. I learned about this relatively recently, but it's been around for quite a few years. So, this is MIT's open courseware database. And it pretty much the goal was to put all the materials from all MIT courses into this database so that people can come in and freely use it, whether you just want to learn yourself or if you are like us and want to use the material to teach your own class. And so it's a really great resource to have. Everything in here is available. It's via an open license, so it is a Creative Commons license. You can use it. You can plug it in as is. You can customize it, remix it. Um, Pretty much use it as you would like. So again, 2,500 plus um, um, course materials in here from courses. So I recommend going to that explore option. I know I clicked that without actually telling you I was doing that. So let me go back to the homepage, and then I would just go to this explore button here, this red one on the right. You can search for specific topics or just look at the different departments that these materials come from, the education level that you want to focus on, different topics. I'm a librarian, so I really like filters. So that's where I go first when I'm searching for things. Um, but it's a really great resource with lots and lots of materials in there that are all openly licensed. Okay. Aggregated repositories. So these carry quite a few different types of materials, not just textbooks. The first one is Skills Commons. So this is for workforce training materials. This was funded by the I can never, okay, Trade Adjustment Assistance for Community College and Career Training Grants. You can browse by industry, search by topic. If you want, they use the different codes that you can browse through or look again through industry and just start searching related materials. If I want to look for something like food service or culinary,
And
I
just
can.
to interrupt, James, if you're looking for CAD, this one is probably your best bet.
Yeah. Yeah. CAD, any manufacturing, computer technology, HVAC, food service, welding. There's some for allied health as well. In Skills Commons, they have a variety of types of materials. Some of it can be, basic outlines all the way to a full textbook or a full course. So you may need to do a little bit of digging and look, maybe limit through the specific material type that you're looking for. But any questions about Skills Commons, reach out to Sally and I. I know career technical education is something that we've been trying really hard to build with OER. Okay, Cool for Ed. So Cool for Ed, if you've heard of Merlot, that's an acronym MERLOT. It's connected to that. It's also connected a little bit to Skills Commons, but this is repository, referatory. It's got lots of textbooks. It also has modules, different assignments, full courses, various assessments in it as well. It's created by the California Open Education Resource Council, and it's hosted by the CSU system. So they align with some of our CIDs. You can browse with that. It pulls from the CSU system as well as from our system, and I think as the UC system as well. There are nice features of this, like the faculty showcase where it highlights their stories on developing OER, different things like that. Again, you can kind of click on this CID course materials button on the right and kind of browse to see what's available in your discipline. I think I saw someone from art in here, and so you can kind of scroll through. It'll show you how many materials are available in each of these. And you can also see what they don't have yet. So some of the gaps in the materials as well. If you are familiar with the ZTC grants from the Chancellor's Office, part of the requirements is that when you create OER, it must be available, and this is where it's going to go into Cool for Ed. So eventually, all of those materials that were created from the ZTC degree programs are going to be available in Cool for Ed. Or has that started yet?
So they just started doing the pilot of pulling resources into this from the ZTC grants. The grants, the deadline to get started on to start your degrees is the end of 2026. So it should be in this next year, 2, 3 years, there should be a tremendous explosion of materials, especially for community college courses that are in Cool for Ed.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Open Oregon is the next one. So this is an aggregate of not just OER, but also library materials. This covers what is being used in colleges and universities in the state of Oregon. So very simple layout. You can kind of browse. You can look at limit by discipline into here, and you can see where it's being used, what's available, and who's using it. There may be some cases where if it's linked here, most likely means it's OER. You can get it right away. If it has this little note here that says available via library access, still counts as ZTC because the students don't have to purchase it, but it's housed in the library. It is probably not OER. I like this resource because if you see something in here that sounds interesting that you want to research, contact the library. Let us know. There are some cases where we have been able to buy licenses, ebook licenses to materials. It's really on a case by case basis. But you can always contact us and we can look through our vendors to see what materials we are able to buy, what the license looks like. But again, case by case basis, but it doesn't hurt to ask. So just reach out and we'll be able to research that for you. Alrighty. OER Commons. Okay, so this is a giant repository as well. It also includes a building platform, so you can not only find OER in here, but you can use it to create or remix your own customized OER. To be completely transparent, I've never used it, so I don't know how helpful it is. But I will talk about LibreText, which is sort of our go-to as far as creating your own OER. Or customizing OER that you find. So again, this is just me with my filters, but I really do enjoy searching by a broad subject and then using those filters to to get more specific in the types of materials I want to find, I would probably update my education level here. But you can also limit by license type, by material type. So if I want a full textbook or just a lesson plan, maybe even a full course or something that's interactive, I can also limit by those tools as well. So with OER Commons, it's one of those that pulls in records or materials from other areas, so you might see some overlap with some of the other ones as well. But it's a good place if you just want to see everything that's out there. Good place to go. Alrighty, LibreText. I just mentioned it. Okay, LibreText might sound familiar. The ASCCC OERI partners with LibreText often. Sally and the other OER leads in our district have brought LibreText training to us for several times, I think, over the last few years. They're really responsive, very helpful. This came out of I think UC Irvine, possibly, from a faculty member there who still runs it, still involved in doing that, will also come and do the trainings himself. Um,
Davis, UC Davis.
oh, Davis. Okay, yes, yes. Oh, I was thinking Southern California, Northern. Okay, he's closer to us than I thought. And LibreText is what quite a few of our faculty have used to remix some of their materials. I know the communications faculty have used it to create some of their combook. Spanish as well, I think, is in there. They use some of the really great tools in LibreText, and they have it's just a massive and growing number of materials in here. A huge LibreText network. Again, a lot of the people who are using it are in our system. You can go through resources, go to the different libraries. So everything's organized by subject again, and you can browse some of those. Let me see if I can get this right. So I'm going to go into biology. You can look at some of the bookshelves. Some campuses also have bookshelves. I know we have some, but not in all subjects. So you can try to see if Fresno City College, I'm going to click on that one and see um, if we have an actual, yeah, I think that's us. I don't know why my screen's displaying this way. But the one we have in here is conservation biology, which I do think was created by one of our bio faculty who teaches that, as and use ZTC funds to convert their course. That's one way to use LibreText. Another way is to use it to create. So you can find things. And I went to campus bookshelves. I'm going to go to all the bookshelves now. And it's going to show me LibreText materials by a specific subject. So you can also browse the microbio, um, anatomy, and um, physiology, those specific topics. Let me go back and show you the ADAPT homeworking system. I'm not logged in, so I don't know how much it'll show me, but these are, um, correct me if I'm wrong, Sally, this is used to create assessments, right? Or interactive elements in your course.
Yes.
Okay.
So the one that I'm very familiar with is there's our Spanish materials that are really interactive, where there's videos, and then the students can practice their pronunciation, and it's a little bit more robust than what you could find on Canvas.
Yes, yeah. And these can all be embedded into Canvas. You do not have to link out. There's specific ways to do that in the system. I always say a little bit, but there's a learning curve with using the ADAPT system. But luckily, we do have connection with the OERI. There's quite a few folks. I think we have an ADAPT liaison actually with the OERI, if I remember, or an H5P liaison who is an expert on this and can help you. And we also have quite a few faculty in our district and at FCC who have used LibreText and can support in using this. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, LibreText is a really, really good place to go. All right. Okay. I think this is the last one I have. Oasis Geneseo. Not sure if I'm saying that correctly. So this just aims to make discovery of various types of OER available. It's got different kinds of materials, like podcasts and videos and modules that you can embed in addition to the OER textbooks. It's pulling from 132 different sources, which just means you can discover more here. It might also be things that you've discovered in some of those other referatories like Open Textbook, or OER Commons. Um, it also includes things like TED Talks, and you can limit by material type, by the kind of Creative Commons license, by the subject, or from the source that it's pulling from. So if you want to search for a lot of different OER in here, but maybe you want to see, well, what specifically is from OpenStax or what was published by MIT, you can limit by that. It's not loading for me, but hopefully it's loading for everybody else. Alrighty. So that was, again, just a real quick run through of the specific OER that you can use. I'm going to run through the rest of these as well. So Google is also a helpful tool in finding OER. You can use the Google Advanced Search feature, which allows you to filter by license, and you can filter by whether or not you can share it, just share it, or if you want to modify it, or if you want to be able to sell it commercially or something like that. Just search for the advanced search option under settings or tools, and then use that limiter. It's towards the bottom. That's titled usage rights, and it'll search for. Usually, it does a decent job of filtering things that are not OER, but there may be some mistakes here and there. So if you ever have a question about a license of something, feel free to send it to me or Sally, and we can kind of verify that for you if it's not immediately identifiable. Alrighty. And then in addition to OER resources, as Sally mentioned earlier, you can get your course to zero cost by using library resources. We have many ebooks through different platforms. These are all listed here. O'Reilly is one where it's a little different. In accessing it, you do need to create an account, but we have unlimited access to that. So any student on campus can create an O'Reilly account, and then they have free access to tons of textbooks, but also what they call learning paths, which are a collection or curation of materials about a specific subject. Some of it's skills based, so there are quite a few programming language materials in there. There's also things about communication. I think there's some business resources in O'Reilly, but again, a lot of tech heavy programming languages, how to use different software, things like that in O'Reilly. So that's a really good resource for you all. If you have questions on accessing it, let me know. It can be a little bit confusing. It's not immediately identifiable about how to create an account and do all that. EBSCO eBooks, ProQuest eBook Central are also resources we have subscriptions to. And many times the books we have in there are unlimited user license, which means you can require all your students to use that book and there's no limit. But again, if you have questions about how many students can access a book that you find in there, feel free to send it to the library and we can double check that for you. And all of these can be searched through our OneSearch catalog on our website. Alrighty. Oh, that's where you'll find it. Books, OneSearch catalog. And again, taking advantage of filters is your best friend here. We do have a filter that is for open access, and that is not subscription. That is just freely available to students. We do have quite a few OER and open access materials that are cataloged in our database. So take a look at those as well. Okay. I mentioned where to find images earlier. These again are some links to additional ones, but a more comprehensive list, probably a more updated list, is going to be available on the first resource we showed you, the ASCCC OERI where you can find lots of links to different openly licensed materials. All right, and that's what we have for you all today. Please feel free um, if you want to unmute. I haven't looked at the Q&A chat, but I don't think there's quite anything in there. Or again, yeah, feel free to unmute if you do have questions. I also want to thank our interpreters, Chelsea and Jamie, for your help today. Thank you so much.
I'm just finishing up putting the links to the image repositories, and then I did also discover, probably you all discovered it as well, that oh gosh, okay, I can't talk and hit Control C at the same time. That the Oasis Geneseo repository, that link does not work. I was looking to see if I could find someplace to take you there, and I came up with this link here. I don't know if it's the most direct place to go, but it seems that you can search for, oh, look at that. Maybe you could put that one, whatever, however you found that, Linda. That last one. Yeah, that's it right there. Yeah. Yeah, so we do have some time, a few minutes for questions. Anybody looking specifically for something that they weren't able to find anything? Or questions about oh, yes, John, this is a great question, and we probably should have mentioned this. So it is a really, yes, really good idea, really important for the college that you indicate within the Follett bookstore hub that you have a, basically a ZTC course. And the way that you do that is, well, the easiest way that I know how to do that is when you go to Canvas, and then you're going to see that textbook hub. I think it's called the textbook hub over on the left menu. When you start to click through that, that takes you to the place within the Follett Discover hub where you can indicate, the textbook that you want your students to buy. There is a prompt that will come up that asks, it says basically, I use OER materials, something like that. And you just want to yes, click that. Now, you're saying that material that you've created yourself, maybe you're using, articles that aren't necessarily openly licensed, but are still free. Yes, we still would like you to click that, and then that will help, that will put the zero textbook cost icon on your course in self-service, so students will understand that they do not have to buy a textbook when they register for your course. And then yes, that also does help us to keep track of our percentages, the number of sections that we offer that are free for students. So yes, and that's something that you can do any at the beginning of the semester. So you could even though we're about to start, you could still do it now, and it would be important for our record keeping. Yeah, so another question here about what's the difference between a ZTC course and materials that you're using that are OER based. And so remember, really, sometimes they can be synonymous. They can be referring to the same thing. ZTC is really just talking about the cost to students. So from the student's point of view, do they have to pay any money to get the materials for your course? OER is talking about the license of the material, so openly licensed. So it is possible to have, of course, ZTC materials that are not openly licensed. So that would be if, you can give them, materials that you link to, from websites or, some of our library materials that do have a license, but they're free for students. And then there also could be a case where someone's using OER materials and openly licensed materials, but there is a small cost for students. So for example, you're using an OER textbook, it's openly licensed, but your discipline really requires students to have paper copies of that. Now, one thing that we can do is, for the most part, most people can order copies of, chapters, textbooks, articles at the copy center and get those copied for students for free. But it is also possible to go through the bookstore, and then students would potentially have to purchase copies of that. And there is a little bit of a cost associated with that. It is also common, especially for our English faculty, that you have like a rhetoric book or, the big textbook, the one that normally might cost like $80 to $120. You find a really great, or a replacement for that. So you're using OER materials in your course for that, but you also want your students to purchase a novel that, costs $12 or $15 or something like that. So in that case, you would be, using OER, but the course also does cost your students some money. Let's see. It is best practices, yeah, Gabriella, to put the citation, and again, if you're linking to an OER source or you're copying the content, most of the time the license information is going to be already, on there. So you don't really have to do too much. The licensing, and the attribution really comes into play if you are doing a lot of editing, if you're kind of remixing several materials together. And then if you are creating something that you want to publish, that you want to make available for others, then it's really important to understand the licensing there. And we can help you with that. Yes. So for all of the virtual Flex Day sessions, they are recorded. And then what happens is Susie Nitzel takes the recordings. She does like the little editing, like she will, cut off the very beginning part. And, if there's any mess ups or anything like that, she kind of fixes it up. And then she will put it onto the Fresno City College Professional Development YouTube page. And you can search, Google search that, or even go into YouTube and search that, and you will find that. It generally takes her a couple of weeks to get the recordings up. If you want to email me, maybe not today because I might lose it, but if you want to email me in a week or so, I can send you that recording as well.
I asked mostly because I wanted to all of the links, and I guess I can watch the video and get the links, but
Yeah,
if you have a
so
place where all of those links are available, that would be
yes,
cool in an
so
email.
I actually do. I made a because I knew someone was going to ask for this, so I made a document. Let me make sure I can find it here. Here we go. And potentially this might have one of the old links on here, but for the most part, it has all the links that we shared on this document. So this is the one I was just copying and pasting from.
Okay, I'll send you an email.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat for you.
Okay. Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, and so we were talking about, indicating through Follett, the full lit hub. If your course is zero cost, if you are not requiring students to purchase any textbooks, then that's something that we're asked that faculty have to do, to go through that. However, we also have an icon in self-service, an LTC icon. It's like a little blue arrow that goes down. I think it might have a dollar sign on it. And so that should automatically be put on your course. If your total textbook cost is $40 or less. Oh, there it is right there. Yeah. If it's $40 or less, then this icon should appear on your course. Now, there have been cases where there's been some kind of like glitchy thing or a mistake is made. For example, sometimes when faculty puts a recommended textbook, that's not supposed to count towards the total, but sometimes it's messed up. It does count. Or I've also seen cases where they list like the new version is, this amount, the used version is this amount, the rental version is this amount, and then the system thinks that all of the students have to buy all of those versions. So that should not be the case. So if you see an irregularity, so like, if you know that your textbook is $35 or $25 or whatever, then you should see that little blue arrow icon next to your course in self-service. If you don't see that, then just let me know, and I'll check it out. Mark, go ahead and unmute, and you can ask your question if you don't want to type it.
Hi, yeah. So I'm an adjunct, a new adjunct. I just started class this summer. So I know for the OpenStack there is the available as assignable. I'm wondering if there's any other. I teach culinary food service management, by the way. I was wondering if there is any other resources for finding homework material other than just maybe looking inside the textbooks or creating your own.
That is a discipline that I'm not really too familiar with. Linda, do you have an answer to that? You're muted, by the way.
So homeworking specifically, like different assessments and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, like different kind of homework resources that you can assign for your, for your sections that you're doing, whatever it is that week. Just different ideas or different places to find homework material or ideas.
My go-to would be Skills Commons because it has a variety of resources. I know culinary food service management is um, uh, an option in there. The other might be Merlot, um, Merlot. I think it's merlot.org. We didn't show that one, but that one might also have various assessments, like homeworks. Um, as far as a full, it may be something you would have to kind of piece together. I'm not familiar if there's anything that comes as a full homeworking system, like you would find in Assignable. Those are full-on homeworking systems created per textbook. It has something for every chapter. This might be something you would have to put together yourself, but I can look. Similar to Sally, I haven't done too much research into it. But if you can send me your email, also to maybe the specific class you're looking for or classes, and then we can see what's available.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
one more question. Are we going to be able to get like would we be able to get this PowerPoint as well? These Google Slides? Are we going to be able to get those afterwards to reference?
Yeah, I'm gonna right now make a copy of it because we're on Google Slides, and I will put that in the chat. Just give me like a second here.
Okay, thank you. If I have any more questions, I'll just reach out to you guys by email. I appreciate that.
Yes,
Also,
definitely.
Sally and Linda will send me the slides and I'll make sure they get posted on the professional development work groups SharePoint site in the FlexDay folder where you can go back and find all the presentations that were sent to me by presenters from past Flex Days.
Thanks, Susie. I think it's 10:45. I think that's time, right? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm putting that in the chat right now. There it is right there. Putting it in the chat right there. But yes, if you missed it or you need it, you can look for it when it gets uploaded to the YouTube page, or you can just reach out to me if you lose that.
And thank you to our interpreters, Ashley and Jamie. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.